Welcome into yet another edition of The Block, coming off a holiday weekend. The 4th of July delivered fireworks, but we are going to deliver fireworks today. I've got my guys, Blake Brockermeyer, Carl Reed, here ready to talk some college football. Whole lot going on when we talk about the fireworks being delivered by conference realignment. Amidst college football madness, we've got the Big Ten, the SEC making moves, but there's a particular holdup that's drawing a ton of headlines. Oregon and Washington are in somewhat of a no man's land. The Pac-12 and its future is up in the air. But obviously, Oregon and Washington, with desires to go to the Big Ten, must now wait, as they've been told by the Big Ten Conference, we're good for right now. So, Carl, I want to go to you first. Is the Big Ten making a mistake by not signing on Oregon and Washington now? Or do we think this is a play off for a reason as they build towards the future?
Well, the reason obviously looks like they're focused on Notre Dame, but maybe they also don't want Oregon and Washington. If you Oregon and Washington, how do you feel right now that you reached out to the Big Ten and they told you no? If you ask a girl to go to prom with you and she says, wait a minute, let me see what Tom is going to do first. And if I can go with Tom, I'm going to go with Tom. But if he says no, I'll get back to you. That's really what is going on right here. What surprises me the most with the amount of Nike money that's in college football, how do you say no to Phil Knight in his school when he's sponsoring all of the top programs in the country? It just doesn't seem like the Big Ten is as interested in Oregon and Washington as Oregon and Washington is in them. And so having to wait on Notre Dame, it doesn't make a lot of sense in the big scheme of things. If they really wanted those teams, Oregon and Washington are really in a weird space right now with what they're going to do moving forward conference-wise.
Yeah, I don't understand the reasoning in making them wait. I think it's inevitable that they're both going to join the Big Ten. I think, Notre Dame, it looks like it's a likely option for the Big Ten, but I wouldn't say it's a lock to join the Big Ten. They're going to have a lot of choices and options. But Oregon and Washington make a lot of sense to me. Oregon's obviously got a huge brand, big name. They're good in all sports. I think that's a great fit, and you got to bring somebody with them. Washington's been a good program. They're a big revenue producer in the Pac-12, and they're good in a lot of sports. Plus, you've got the Seattle market. So I think it's inevitable that they're both going to get in. The Notre Dame thing, I think, will run its course. I don't think that's a lock for the Big Ten, but I would say that that's a likely destination if I were to have to guess today.
So let's talk about Notre Dame because it must play out. I'm going to put you in the shoes of Notre Dame executives and administrators. If you are the Fighting Irish trying to determine your future, Blake, starting with you, what do you do? Are you signing on with the Big Ten? Are you going to go to the ACC? Are you going to remain independent? What's the next play for the Irish?
I'm going to join a conference, but I'm going to leverage my logo and my name and the value that Notre Dame creates to my advantage. I'm going to make sure that there's that my TV deal that I have right now with NBC that runs out after the 25 season, I'm going to make sure that is in my favor, where maybe I get a larger piece of the puzzle, larger piece of the pie, whatever conference I join. And if the Big Ten says no, then maybe I'll go to the ACC or, theoretically the SEC even. So I think the Big Ten is the best fit for Notre Dame academically, geographically. I think it makes a lot of sense, but they've obviously been in the ACC and made it work a couple of years ago with COVID. And so I think whatever they can do to leverage themselves to where they can make the most money and keep a little bit of maybe some extra freedom is what they'll do.
I think that you have to look at joining the Big Ten if you're Notre Dame for recruiting. Kids want to play in conferences now. And so from a situation of guys wanting to be in conferences, it's not like when we were growing up and Notre Dame was an independent and everybody was running to the TV to watch Notre Dame play. And especially with the SEC and the Big Ten growing the way they're growing, you're going to start to limit yourself on big-time non-conference games that you can play. It is also going to prepare you for the opportunity to win a national championship, which Notre Dame has not done in a very long time. And even when they've gotten in that game or gotten to those playoffs, they got roughed up a little bit because they weren't prepared to see that type of elite talent. I think Notre Dame has to join the Big Ten. If they don't like the Big Ten's package, like Blake said, you could look at the ACC and those guys. But if I was the Big Ten and the ACC also, I look at Notre Dame and I would tell them either get on the bus with us or our teams aren't going to play you moving forward. And I'd let them figure it out and stay on that island by themselves. But they wouldn't do it with the support of Big Ten teams.
It would be interesting to me too, is let's say they do hypothetically join the Big Ten. I mean, if you're Ohio State and Notre Dame's able to, keep a substantial amount of money through their home games for television or something like that, I mean, how mad are you going to be when you're the team that's been winning national championships, you win the Big Ten consistently, you're a national powerhouse, and then Notre Dame comes in and gets a bigger piece of the pie than you? Like that would bother me if I were Ohio State. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
It just feels like these are the dominoes that are falling to finally get Notre Dame into a conference. USC, a big key there with Notre Dame, potentially a play at Stanford if all this plays out. But at this point, it just makes a lot of sense for Notre Dame, and it might cost them money ultimately if they do not join a conference like the Big Ten. Speaking of the Big Ten and the SEC and all of this conference realignment and even expansion, we're going to have the first ever conference realignment draft here on the block. We're going to go snake style. Blake, you are the SEC. Carl, you are the Big Ten. Congratulations, gentlemen. You've got a lot of money and teams already, but you got to add more. So, Carl, you're going to have the first overall pick since the Big Ten is a hot button topic. We will then go Blake for the next two, and Carl will close us out. So, Carl, with the first pick in the blocks realignment draft, the Fighting Carl Reeds of the Big Ten select.
I'm going to take North Dakota State. North Dakota State, guys, listen to me. North Dakota State has won 7 of the last 8 FCS championships. They have destroyed teams at the Power 5 level in non-conference games. The only team in the Big Ten that I'm positive can beat North Dakota State is Ohio State. They give everybody else in that league a run for their money right now. They've had top 5 draft picks. They've been dominant. When scheduling comes out, teams in the Big Ten are running away from North Dakota State. I get on the phone with the AD Matt Larson at North Dakota State, and I offer them an opportunity to come to the Big Ten. Nobody in the FCS can beat you anymore. They're not going to beat you. They could win the next 10 championships of FCS if they choose to. It's time to come up to the big leagues. It's time to take your promotion to the majors. Give me North Dakota State and the Bison.
So one pick in, and it's pure chaos, Blake. You're up with the number 2 pick representing the SEC. Notre Dame is on the board. So many other programs. Who are you taking number 2 overall?
Well, I definitely wasn't expecting that from Carl. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to the SEC. I wasn't planning on being able to take them, but I will take them gladly. The SEC would just create even more chaos in the national scene to add Notre Dame to the SEC. It would be a great brand for any conference, but if you want to be the best, the SEC has got the best brand of football, in my opinion. They got the best teams right now, and Notre Dame would be an incredible addition to that conference.
All right, so we're 2 picks in. Quick recap. Carl took North Dakota State to the Big Ten with the number 1 overall pick. As the judge, as a college football fan, I love it. As maybe the member of the Big Ten office, I absolutely hate that pick. But regardless, Carl, it's bold of you, and I will like to see it play out. Maybe could have saved it for later on in the draft, though, but who knows? Maybe you'll surprise us yet again. Blake, love the pick. Obviously, Notre Dame to the SEC would be fascinating. So we're 2 picks in. I like what Blake's doing. I'm interested, to say the least, in what Carl is doing. But Blake, snake draft style, you're up with the number 3 overall pick to the SEC.
Yeah, well, this was going to be my first realistic pick, but I'll take Clemson. I think Clemson makes a lot of sense. Obviously, one of the top football programs in the country in the last decade or so. Geographically, it makes sense. They're rivals with South Carolina, which would be a great addition to the SEC as well. And I think it just would be a incredible opportunity for Clemson at the recruiting at a high level to go and compete against the best week in, week out. There's no doubt about whether they belong or not in the SEC. If they can win their conference and compete at a high level in the SEC, then you know that they're capable of even taking their program to even a higher level than they're at right now, which is hard to do. There's not much higher you can go, but that's who I would take.
Blake, I love the pick. We've seen Clemson be one of the only programs in the country that can consistently hold up to Alabama. We've also seen them have some pretty fun games against Notre Dame. So with your two picks, you have Notre Dame and Clemson to the SEC. I love that as a pairing, and I love those two as a fit in the Southeastern Conference. To close us out, Mr. Unpredictable, Carl Reed, picking for the Big Ten at number 4 overall. Where are you going to go with this one, Carl?
Now, Blake, I'm not going to lie. I like your picks. I think they're solid and safe picks. When we talk college football, we all have a couple of teams in our league who can compete for a national championship. But what about the teams at the mid-level or the bottom of these leagues that are barely hanging on to the Power 5 conference? Some of those teams probably don't belong. I think there's one team led by one guy who can create a lightning rod for college football throughout the country if he listens to me right now and makes this one big time move. All right. Deion Sanders, you don't have to go to Florida State. You don't have to go to TCU. You don't have to go to Georgia Tech. You pick the phone up and you call Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Cuban, and you tell them you need the money for a new stadium. You need the money for your 85 scholarships, and you become the most dynamic African-American head coach to ever coach in college football, and you take your HBCU Jackson State program to the Big Ten and Power 5 football. You are the most dynamic guy in the country, and only a guy like Deion Sanders could make something happen. The SWAC is not going to catch up with you. HBCU football is not going to catch up with you. You have a vision like anybody else. You're the greatest of all time. You get those guys to put all of their money behind you. You put all your chips on the table, and you make Jackson State a Power 5 program, and you come with me to the Big Ten. Deion Sanders, Jackson State. I want you. Give this man his 85 scholarship. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, you give the man the money to compete with NIL money. You create Amazon Stadium on the campus of Jackson, Mississippi, and you bring Deion to the big time. He doesn't need to go anywhere. Jackson State is my pick to join me in the Big Ten Conference.
Wow. Blake, I did not have that one on my bingo card, let alone the draft board, but I mean, general reaction to this one, Blake, because I'm still kind of caught off guard.
I mean, you got to look at the finances involved and the money involved and television, and Jackson State and North Dakota State are just not going to bring you the views and the television, the markets. I think that sounds fun, but I think it's just completely unrealistic. But it would be interesting to see it happen. We'll see what kind of power Coach Reed's got in the national scene or the Big Ten.
I mean, but genuine question: if we're lining it up with Kevin Coleman and Travis Hunter, and they're playing Illinois, can Jackson State beat them? I mean, they might actually win a couple.
Who's going to
Big Ten?
Who's going to out recruit Deion if he's in a Power 5 conference? Who's going to out recruit Deion Sanders if he's got 85 scholarships in a Power 5 conference? Nobody.
I think that is a great way to end the show. A little food for thought, if you will, as here on Block. These two out, Carl Reed, Blake Brockermeyer on Twitter, then head to 247sports.com for all things college football. Like the video, subscribe to the brand new YouTube channel, and share this page as we continue to get this show out there. Gentlemen, it's always fun.